Well, it rained. Yeehaw! In the last about 2.5 weeks, we've gotten 4 inches of rain, which is about 3.5 inches more than we had gotten in the 4 months before that. If you haven't been keeping up, I have. And the grass is growing. So we are excited. We haven't seen green grass in months. So now we're getting back into the swing of things with, I hate to say the way they should be, but the way we're used to them being this time of year. Lessons have been learned in this drought, and that's good. Like I've said before, it's probably foolish to think you're going to go through this lifestyle for a long period of time and not experience drought. We've just been lucky in the upcoming years previous, and now it was time for me to learn how to handle drought, and that's what we did. Lots of mistakes, a few good things. We'll definitely handle it better next time. So we have learned we were stocked a little heavy. I knew we were stocked heavy, and it was fine for the spring. But if you look at that line of demarcation behind me, right yonder, that is the paddock I just moved him from to today's paddock. We've been taking the grass down way too far for the last, well, for a couple months we were taking it down too far, which means we were eating too much of it without leaving enough residual. And again, I knew this. It was working well in the spring because we were getting lots of rain. And as long as you're getting rain and giving the ground plenty of rest, taking grass down really low is not the end of the world. There's just an inch or two of residual left. And as long as you get the rains and it keeps raining, that's okay, in my experience. As long as you give it plenty of rest, it'll come back real thick. And look at all that poop. The problem is when it doesn't rain. And that's what we ran into. When it stops raining and you've grazed down low without leaving a bunch of residual, the ground dries out really quickly. Not only that, but once it finally rains again, it takes longer for the grass to rebound because there's no solar collectors left. The leaves of the grass, like here, if we had left that much grass and moved on, even if it had gotten real dry or whatever, the ground would have stayed covered. See, this grass keeps the ground covered. It acts as a natural mulch. It shades the ground from both sun and wind, but when you expose dirt by grazing too close and then it gets dry, it gets really dry. And then when it starts to rain, the ground has kind of formed a hard cap over top of it, and that is hard for the initial rains to penetrate. So that first round of rain that we did get just kind of softened the ground, but a lot of it ran off because the ground was so hard and dry. So it wasn't, luckily, until we got a couple subsequent rains that the rain really started to saturate the ground. But then even then, the grass was so short that it didn't have a lot of solar collection area on the blades, and so it took a little while to take off. In areas where we left the grass a little long, it started coming back quick, and that grass is over a foot tall already. But in areas where we took it down short, we're just now coming back up to these blades being probably on average 6 to 8 inches. And there's still spots where it's thin, where it's still brown, and the grass is really just now starting to come back. So in the spring, while I was trying to keep up with the spring flush, which I felt like I was doing a good job of, I actually probably kept up a little too much. And I wasn't prepared to leave a little behind for when it got dry, and it got dry quick. And And then we were kind of dead in the water. We grazed around the farm twice with no rain, which took about 70 days. And then after our second pass around, there was no grass. And so then we started having to feed hay. So that's a recap of the last couple months. But the rain is back, the grass is growing, but it's just not as easy as just sending them right on in the rotation because the grass is slow to rebound right now. So what we've been doing for the last week and a half, 2 weeks, if you look up on the hill, we've been going high density like we did over the winter and feeding hay. Even though the grass is green, they've been wanting to get out on it, but I've been holding them back for an extra 10 days or so, just feeding extra hay and letting the grass get a little bit of a head start. I didn't want it to just be a couple inches tall, greening up, and have them come through and crush it and slow it down again. So had to hold them back for about 10 days, and now for the first time in 4.5 months, they're on a nice, large paddock, green grass, lots of clover, and they couldn't be happier, and so am I. It's like 68 degrees, partly sunny, perfect fall weather. The grass is growing again. It's growing again. Things are good. Just managing through the drought. Gotta do what you gotta do. We downsized our herd, got rid of a couple animals, still have one more to get rid of, and then we'll be harvesting the 3 beef steers in December and a couple 7 sheeps or lambs, and that'll get us to our winter stocking density, and then hopefully we won't make that same overstocked mistake again. I like to say lesson learned, but I can be hard-headed sometimes, so I don't want to look back in this video 4 years from now like, dang it, I already learned that lesson and now I learned it again. But hopefully lesson learned. So anyway, hopefully we're done with hay for a while, because that green grass looks a lot better. But when you do roll it out, we're just rolling it out on tops of these hills, getting all sorts of poop coverage, putting the carbon down from the hay, so this in turn will help the grass grow back when we get back here. I expect this to be a lot better than surrounding grass, just with all the poop and hay and all the nutrients we've spread here, buying hay from other people instead of taking it off our own land and putting it down on our land, kind of buying in both nutrients for the ground and for the cows. Double whammy. Whammy.